What's going on, everybody? Thank you so much for sitting in here with us on this Monday, week 3 edition of the Sports Ethos Weekly Lineup Show. My name is Joe Orrico. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Orrico99. I'm joined today by Dirty Steve Vidovich. That is what I believe he is going by nowadays. You guys can find him at Steven Vidovich, as you see on screen there. Steve, how you doing today, my man?
I actually got a haircut recently, so I feel a little less dirty than normal, but I'll try to bring the same Dirty Steve element even with the new cut. Glad to be back after a week off and excited to get into some more basketball talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Throw your questions into the chat. Those of you who are sitting in already, we are going to be talking today about lineup questions. If you guys have trade questions or anything else, feel free to throw them in there as well. I was going over some of the schedule stuff for this week just to prepare, and I think this is the first week where we actually have some real kind of what could be crucial lineup decisions in terms of sit and starts. These first couple of weeks is more elementary. We talked about it in the first week that you kind of just start your first 10 picks more or less. There might be a little bit of wiggle room there. Now there's been some shakeups on your fantasy rosters. You've picked up some guys, you've dropped some guys. And now we actually have some interesting stuff with the schedule. So real quick, I will let you chime in here in a second, but there's 3 teams that have 2 games, the Nuggets, the Pacers, and the Mavs. Off the top of your head there, are there guys that you're going to be looking to be sitting who normally you might start in those matchups just because they have only 2 games this week?
Yeah, instead of talking about who I'd rather sit in 12-team leagues, I'll mention who I would still start in 2-game weeks.
Okay.
So on the Mavs, Luka Doncic, and that's it. I wouldn't start anyone else, including Christian Wood. On the Nuggets, it's Nikola Jokic and maybe Michael Porter Jr. And then on the Pacers, it's going to be Tyrese Halliburton and probably Miles Turner. So those are the only 5 guys on those 3 teams that I would start in comparison to a team that has 4 games this week. So again, that's Doncic on the Mavs, obviously, Jokic on the Pacers, Michael Porter Jr. probably on the Pacers, and he will play in both games this week, barring an injury, because there won't be any load management for him. And then on the Pacers, it's going to be Halliburton and probably Turner.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of tricky. I mean, a lot of people I've seen were picking up Bones Highland, Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, Isaiah Jackson. Those guys are going to be very, very tough to get into your lineups this week. So throw some questions out there. There might be an individual case-by-case basis where maybe you would start, even let's say like Christian Wood or something. There might be certain cases where you would still, but I think for the most part, you're pretty safe in sitting those guys. There's a lot of teams that play 3 games this week, and there's a few teams that play 4 games this week. Are there any guys sticking out from those? I don't know if you've had much of a chance to look over at these 4-game week teams, but is there anybody that you might be looking to start there where you wouldn't in a usual 3-game week?
So I use the schedule grid. That's where I got the two game weeks. The 3 and the 4 doesn't really move the needle for me if I'm looking at weekly lineups, just because you have so many guys getting rested on back-to-back situations. So I'm not really that eager to start. If I'm looking at streamable guys with 3 or 4 games, that could move the needle for me in terms of who I would stream over another player. If let's say they have 4 games versus 3, but it doesn't move the needle nearly as much as the teams that have 2 games this week.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you there. There's a couple things that stuck out a little bit to me. Brooklyn playing 4 games. Now there's 2 days this week where we have really high volume days, Wednesday and Friday, 11 and 12 games. Now Brooklyn plays 4 games, and let me just pull it up here. So they play on the Tuesday when we have a low volume, and we have Saturday where it's also kind of a low volume. Whereas all the other 4-game teams, they play on that Wednesday where there's a lot of teams playing anyway. So that particular advice would be like for Royce O'Neal. If you saw Royce O'Neal get dropped in one of your leagues, I think he can have a hell of a lot of value this week. And even maybe check for Nick Claxton, because there's a couple of leagues where I saw his roster percentages was going down. So maybe you get a freebie there with one of those 2 guys. You agree?
Unless you care about your free throw percentage with Claxton would be the only caveat with him. But I agree with you on those 2 guys.
I still think he should be on a roster, like whether it's your team or not. I don't think he should be floating around on a lot of teams. If he is, maybe you are a free throw strong team. You're shooting in the high 80s. if you see Claxton there, it might be kind of tough to pick him up, but maybe you pick him up, you bench him for a couple games or whatever, just so he doesn't kill your percentages. And there should be some decent value in him this week. Maybe you turn him around and try and flip him for somebody who's not going to hurt your particular team build. But I think that he should be rostered. I think he's somewhere in the 70-ish% range on Yahoo. It should be, I think, a little bit higher.
I totally agree with you there. One other thing schedule-wise is Thursday we have a really light schedule. We only have 2 games on Thursday with the Warriors Magic and Nuggets Thunder. And one thing in particular about that Warriors game on that Thursday is it comes on the front end of a back-to-back. So I could see them resting a good amount of their starters, specifically Klay Thompson, for that Thursday game if they don't do it on Friday. If that's the case, Jordan Poole's value might be really high this week. I know he's gotten off to a rocky start. He had a pretty great game last night against the Pistons. I could see Jordan Poole having quite a game. If you're in deep leagues, maybe even Moses Moody comes into the streaming consideration this week. But we're talking, 20-team leagues and deeper at that point. But those 4 teams on Thursday are the Warriors, Magic, and then Nuggets, Thunder. So that could be a really great game to target for streaming appeal now in weekly matchups. Obviously, the Nuggets only play 2 games, so they're kind of out the window in that. But look for the Thunder, Warriors, and Magic.
You got to help me out with something here, being a Warriors fan. Why is James Wiseman still on so many rosters when he's not doing anything? He's not getting minutes when he's out there. He's okay. He's on 60% of Yahoo rosters still. Is there something I'm missing here?
I think it's as simple as he has been the cover boy on magazines. I think he got the cover. I don't even know if it was a electronic magazine or something, but I saw him as the cover on another magazine recently, former number 2 overall pick, been in the limelight a long time. He shouldn't be on as many rosters as he is. Maybe down the road he will be, and then people will be, saying, "Oh man, Joe, what are you saying now?" And James Wiseman's, producing at a really high level, but that's not happening yet. So I totally agree with you. He should not be on as many rosters as he is, and that's the reason, in my opinion, is name value, brand value. Like versus a guy like Royce O'Neal that you talked about earlier. He's more of a boring player that people don't care about as much. And so that's why his value is a lot lower. It could also have something to do with maybe points leagues. James Wiseman might have a tiny bit more value, but even in points leagues, he shouldn't be on as many rosters as I think you said 60%.
Yeah,
that's way too high, even in points leagues. So.
No, I've talked about him a little bit. I've been doing these daily Twitter notes where they're on the Discord a few hours before. And I've been kind of tracking his percentage over the last few days. It was at 67. Now it was 65 last night. Now it's down to 60. So that should just keep going down and down. He's only getting, 13 minutes last night, 5 the night before, 14, 18. He's just not really playing enough for him to really have value right now. But we got a couple of questions that we're going to get to here. Let's get the first one up on screen. Rock Claren, I believe, I butcher names regularly, but I believe that's how it would go. I'm trying to get rid of Marcus Smart given his more limited minutes competing with the other guards this year. What do you think would be a good value to get back? Top 100, top 90? I still feel like he's probably someone where you're not going to get full value for him. I like Marcus Smart. Now, he might suffer a bit because of White and Brogdon being there, but I still do think that we're not seeing the true version of him yet. So if you're going to sell him, I would still be aiming for a top 80 or top 90 kind of player. What do you think, though, Steve?
Yeah, I would go top 90. I wouldn't go as far as top 100. And we have to remember, it's not top 90 as terms of who is producing now as a top 90 player. It'll be who you believe has top 90 value rest of the way. So I would try to sell Smart, but maybe now is not the right time to sell because he's been struggling so much. So if I was to aim for a guy, I would want somebody who definitely has top 90 potential with perhaps less mouths around him in a backcourt.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little bit worried, but I still do think that he will rebound, and top 80 should be something that he's well within range for him. So if you're going to sell him, that would be what I would aim for. Although in my head, I think that you should probably just be holding on to him for now because I don't think you're going to get true value where you drafted him. Let's move on to the next question here. Frimbo asks, what are some names I could realistically trade John Collins for? Steve, we'll throw this one to you.
Oh, man. Okay. So John Collins has gotten off to an amazing start to the season. I think realistically, you want to be aiming for a guy in the third/fourth round value. I don't know how much higher you could get. Looking at players that are in that range right now, I would I'd consider trading. Okay, here's an example. Let's say LeBron James is on someone else's team. I would go ahead. I would try and offer John Collins for LeBron James. There's a name that I think could be a good get in return. Maybe you could even get a Desmond Bain. I think I'd prefer having Desmond Bain rest of the season to John Collins. So perhaps that's another player in that range that you might be able to get. You're not going to be able to get anybody that I believe is like higher than that tier for him. And I mean, perhaps at that point, maybe you just even stay pat with John Collins. But if you were going to try to trade him, those are a couple of names that I saw that could be attainable, in my opinion.
I would be inclined to probably just hold on. I mean, if you're going to be selling him now, it would be for a sell high moment, which you've probably not closed, but these last couple of games, I mean, 4 points, 10 rebounds, still good defensive stats. And then most recently it was 4 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. You've kind of maybe cut into your side or sell high window a little bit these last couple of games. So I don't know that you're going to be able to really get like a second round player back for him. I think probably your best course of action is to just hold on, unless you can go for one of the guys Steve is talking about. If you're getting somebody who is someone you're pretty sure can return second round, top 25 ish value for you, then do it. But I think that might be a tall order at this point in time.
Agreed.
Let's keep it going.
But hey, congrats for drafting John Collins.
Oh yeah, no,
because you probably got him at a great value where you got him, and he's got a solidified role the rest of the season. So
yeah, no, the Hawks are looking pretty good fantasy wise so far this season, except for DeAndre Hunter. I've talked about him a lot, but we'll leave that one for now. Let's move on to the next question. Jack is asking 9 games, RotoCap, 11 teams. When do you think a Kong will be worth picking up? It's hard to say. I mean, he's getting similar minutes to what Capella is getting. They're both around like the 23, 24 minute mark, I think, most nights. Do you have any more insight on this? It's hard for me to really say when they're going to give the reins to a Kongwu at this point.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, I don't think it's going to. We're not going to see Capella his role reduced unless an injury takes place or a trade. So, I mean, it's very difficult to say when Okongwu would be worth picking up. I mean, if you got a really strong team and you could afford a bench spot, I would try to keep him because I do think it's going to happen this season. If I was to give like a, total guess out of a vacuum, which is very hard to do, I would say maybe mid-January, but like that's just like picking a date based on watching basketball for a long time and seeing second half producers, definitely after All-Star break, but that's a long ways away. So if I was to give like a conservative guess, I'd say maybe mid-January. But if you got a really strong team, it might be worth just putting them on your bench. And if somebody better is out there on the wire, then go ahead and make the swap. But I'd rather have a guy like a Kongwu than maybe one of these older players on the Jazz who I could see going in the opposite direction as the season advances.
Yeah, totally agree there. Let's get to the next question here. Jalen Williams or Isaiah Jackson? For this week, it's got to be Jalen Williams, I think, given the 3 low volume days that Oklahoma City plays on versus just the 2 games you'd be getting out of Indiana. That would be what I'd do short term. Long term, that's another tricky one to really answer. But for right now, I think I would. Oh, there goes the lights flickering in my room. There should be some more value in Jalen Williams this week, I would think.
Yeah, Jalen Williams this week because of the 2-game week we were talking about with the Pacers. But Isaiah Jackson, long term for me, I'd rather have the guy who has more NBA experience than the rookie, especially with the way the Thunder experiment with lineups. And maybe if Jalen Williams plays too well this season, maybe he's in risk of getting shut down. So I go Isaiah Jackson long term, but I agree with you, Jalen Williams in the short term.
That organization is so frustrating, man. Like I saw somebody talk on Twitter the other day. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was in a bigger market, he'd be seen as like a top 12, 15 player, and he's not viewed that way because of where he plays. It's a frustrating situation, especially for fantasy. Jake says John Stamos, new Warriors New Warriors got to be back-to-back city, man. Oh no, he cleaned up the language here. John Stamos got to celebrate if Warriors go back-to-back. Is he a Bay Area guy, John Stamos?
I'm actually not sure. My John Stamos knowledge is he's too clean for me, you know.
Let's keep it going with the questions here. Bull, rest of season fantasy value. Do you see him as a top 50 player? I don't really. I've been a little bit hesitant on him. I don't know that he's going to just get 30 minutes a night now. I think this might be a time to sell high on him personally. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, it's too early for me to put him in that category. I have him in a couple of spots because, you know, the data suggests that he's producing fantasy value right now, and that's all we care about in the moment. But I don't see him as a top 50 player long term. I do think that Mo Bamba will get in the mix at some point this season. I don't know. Bull has taken his spot in the rotation, but I don't see him as a top 50 player. Top 100, yeah, I could see that rest of season. He does have a fantastic fantasy stat set, so he has that going for him. But top 50 is too much of a stretch for me. I'd sell high, but I don't know that you really can sell high based on such a small sample size, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you can get a top 50 player back for him, then I'd be jumping on that completely. Next question we have here: are LaMelo or Garland going to be back this week? Honestly, I'm not 100% sure about that. I can take a look here.
Yeah, I know LaMelo is out tonight, and I would definitely not. I know that head coach Big Red Dog Steve Clifford, he said that that LaMelo and Martin and Terry Rozier are all close to coming back, but I would be really nervous on LaMelo. Garland, I think, should be back this week. I haven't heard as much about Garland. The Cavs, they play their first game tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Yeah. And they got 3 games this week. I mean, with Wednesday, he was supposed to come back on Friday, and it got delayed. The left eye laceration. If I was to make a blind guess, I'd say LaMelo out. I'd put him on your bench. Garland, put him in.
Yeah, the most recent report I'm seeing here on Garland is that he had decreased swelling. So I think
that's a great sign.
Give him a couple more days, and I think it's probably likely he's back. He's already missed a hell of a lot more time than I expected. It's been, 7, 8 games he's missed at this point. Didn't think it'd be this long. But yeah, this week, he's probably the safer play in a weekly format. Next question, we have Deep League. Austin Reeves or Devontae Graham? What do you think there, Steve?
One last thing on Garland, just if you're still listening there, none of the games are in a back-to-back situation. I just looked at SportsEthos' streaming tool, and I saw that Cleveland has no back-to-backs this week, so even more encouraging to play Garland, put him in your lineup. Austin Reeves or Devontae Graham in a Yahoo Points League situation. I think I'm going to go Devontae Graham with the Pelicans injuries going on, and you're in a points league. So Graham would be my choice there out of the two. I think he's got the higher ceiling. Reeves has the higher floor. If we hear that all the Pelicans are back, then that kind of takes the wind out of Graham's minutes. So in that case, I would play Reeves. But if we're looking at the Pelicans and they're still without a few starters, I'd go Devontae Graham.
Yeah, I think over the course of the season, we might see Reeves have more value just because they're not terribly deep out there in Los Angeles. Not that they are. I mean, they're a bit deeper, I think, in New Orleans, especially in the starting lineup. So they're healthy. Graham doesn't have much value, where I could see Reeves still having some value if the Lakers are healthy. But it's got to be fairly deep league for these guys to be on your radar, I think. So maybe it'll have a little bit more value than we're viewing through like a 12-team lens here. But let's move on to the next question. Who to target out of Terrence Ross, Darius Baisley, or Poku to stream this week? Targeting the slow days like Tuesday and Thursday. Well, Terrence Ross might be interesting. I think now it's 3 games, 3 low volume days for Orlando and 3 low volume days for Oklahoma City as well. I'm not really strongly opinionated on this one. I think maybe I'd go with Ross just for a bit of a higher floor than those other guys, but I'm not really sure. What would you say on this one?
Yeah, I'd go if I had to put it in an order. I think I'd go Ross number one, like you said, the higher floor. All of the Magic's guards are out, so Ross is a really fine stream for me for the foreseeable future. Then, if I had to pick one of the Thunder guys, which I'd rather not pick either of them, I guess I'd go Baisley, but I don't feel good about it. I like Ross better than the Thunder guys quite a bit this week, especially in category. If we're talking category leagues. If we're talking points leagues, then I think I would go with Baisley probably first over
Yeah.
Ross.
Yeah, you might be able to get a double out of Baisley. It's possible you get 10 and 10 out of him, which you're not going to see out of Ross. But yeah, for category leagues, it's probably category Ross and Baisley points is the simple way to answer that one. I think, like you said, is Trey Murphy still a viable stream? I think he's a viable stream for the moment. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, again, it all depends on the injuries with the Pelicans. And one thing that Murphy has in his favor is he was part of the rotation more heavily than Graham, even when the Pelicans were close to full strength. So I definitely like Murphy as a viable stream. I say continue, even if we get the Pelicans back. The three starters that have been out, or I guess two starters with Zion coming back yesterday. I still like Murphy as a stream this week. So not necessarily in 12-team weekly lineups. If you have somebody better to play and Ingram comes back after the road trip, then it's possible that Murphy doesn't have 12-team appeal, but he's shown it even when they've been healthy. So I'd continue to ride Murphy if I didn't have a better option to start this week.
Yeah, I'm not as bullish on some people on his rest of the season outlook. Like if you just look at the Yahoo rankings here, he's showing as the 31st ranked player. I'm not sure what the basketball monster, whoever would have him ranked, but 31st, like I think he's probably someone, like he's definitely someone you'd start for me, but I would try and sell him. I don't think he's going to be able to hold this kind of value specifically if they're healthy for the whole season. Guys, I just want to remind you, like and subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying what you are seeing. Of course, those likes are very important to help everybody else see the show as well. Unless, of course, I mean, maybe you got some people who subscribe to your YouTube who you're playing in the league with, and then you wouldn't really want to do it. But if you can, try and throw a like down on the video. Next question we have here. How much does LaMelo's return affect Rozier's rest of season fantasy value? What do you see Rozier's season rank be? It definitely affects it quite a bit, I think. Rank-wise, I think he can still be somewhere around a top 50 kind of player, but it'll certainly have a pretty solid impact on him going forward.
Yeah, I think that they both might be able to provide really elite fantasy value. Ball obviously having the higher ceiling, but I think Rozier, I would put it at like a top 35. I think he could easily finish as a top 3-round player this season. So I think I'm a little bit higher there on Rozier, even with LaMelo Ball's return. The Hornets are an absolute mess this season, although they did get a pretty impressive win over the Warriors, who's my team this weekend. Been a rough weekend for the Dubs, but yeah, I like Rozier. I'll say conservatively, I see him finishing within the top 35 this season.
Conservatively, wow. So you think like there could be like second round kind of upside there with him?
I do
LaMelo?
believe that. Yeah.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'll defer to you, but I don't think that with LaMelo he could do quite exactly what we are maybe hoping for. Like the field goal, he's shooting 39% on the season. That's going to go up, but he's also averaging 24, 7, and 8.5, which rebounds and assists are going to go down a bit. Maybe you're not crazy to say top 30, top 35 there. I could see that.
And I think he's got a better head on his shoulders than the younger LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, totally fair. Let's keep it going here. Jamie is asking Jalen Suggs or Jalen Williams. I think I'd probably lean Jalen Williams right now, but what about you, Steve?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, if you have the IR spot, can you do both?
Yeah.
I guess I'd lean Jalen Williams just because Suggs is out right now. But when Suggs comes back, I see him being a better fantasy value than Jalen Williams. I just don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, I could see that. I think I don't know. Suggs, in the same way that Jalen Green kind of worries me a little bit fantasy wise, just about like the empty scoring calories of not doing so much for you. I think points league, 100% Suggs there, but I think Williams has the potential to do a little bit more category wise for you. But Oklahoma City is such a nightmare in terms of projecting what's going to happen even tomorrow in terms of their lineup. So a little bit more stability there with Suggs once he comes back. Next question, a fellow Joseph. I was offered Chris Middleton for Jabari Smith in a 9-cat. Which side do you have? I got to go with Middleton there. What about you?
Yep. Yeah, that's a yes for me for
Yeah.
Middleton for sure.
Yeah, that's a hell of a deal you're able to swing off there. That was proposed. I'm curious. That one was proposed to you, or were you trying to? You said I was offered.
He
Yeah.
was
So
offered, yeah.
yeah.
So
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit. Has Middleton been like?
he's been
He hasn't.
out.
He
He
hasn't played a
hasn't
single
played.
game.
Yeah.
I thought he had played one game, but I'm crazy. I guess that is an incredible ability to swing that kind of trade. I would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah, that is that is incredible. Guys, keep the questions coming here. If you have anything else, lineup wise, trade wise, whatever, we're happy to answer anything you might have here. I want to just take a look and see if maybe are there any big injuries that are going to impact this week in terms of your sit start decisions. I just want to check out the BK feed here. Anything that you've noticed in the last hour or so, couple hours? Well, Terry Rozier actually just a few minutes ago, he's ruled out for today.
Yeah, I don't expect either him or Cody Martin to play today.
So that Cody Martin ruled out as well. Yeah. Nothing really. Jayshawn Tate is out tonight, but I don't think that's going to impact you too much. John Wall out tonight.
Joel Embiid is questionable tonight.
Embiid is questionable
with an illness, so that's something to keep an eye on. Not that there's any like really big names that would like step to the forefront of streaming appeal. If he were to miss the game, I mean, I obviously D'Anthony Melton, if he's available in any category formats, would be the guy. But I don't see him being available in many 12-team category leagues. He had a huge game when Joel sat out. I think it was on Friday. I think he had 5 steals. So Melton would definitely be the guy, but I don't. Melton's already rostered in most places. Montrezl Harrell would be a guy in like much deeper leagues, not your 12-team leagues. Tobias Harris would get additional value rebounding the ball. PJ Tucker as well, moving up to the center. But the Joel Embiid questionable is one of the bigger things I'm looking at for tonight's slate. I'm also wondering when Gary Payton II returns. I think that will be really interesting if he's able to return while Dame Lillard is still out, to see how he gels with the Blazers. Obviously, it'll be a rough or a rusty start to his Portland career in his return because he's coming back from abdominal offseason surgery. But I would keep him on watch lists. I'm watching him myself. So
we got another question here about Ivica Zubac. Can he keep up the block numbers the rest of the year, 2 to 3 per game? No one really blocks 3 shots per game. It's unrealistic to expect that. I think he can give you like 1.5. I think that's within reason, but 2 to 3 is probably pushing your luck a little bit there.
I totally agree with Joe there. I would try to sell high if you could. He's had a great start to the season, and it's been a big enough sample size that I think you could try to sell high on him. But I do agree with you. I think this could be, maybe it's a career year and he has 1.4, 1.5 blocks a game.
Yeah, with all the uncertainty about Kawhi, there's a Kawhi question here we'll get to in a second. But I talked about it yesterday. Dan was talking about it. Paul George is someone that you should be investing in. And I think guys who are more, we might see them as fringy, or guys on the Clippers right now, who knows what happens with Kawhi, they might end up being really valuable. And there's a Kawhi question, like I said. Is it worth spending first waiver spot on Kawhi? My league has 1 IR spot and I can't stash him. I still think it would be worth grabbing him there. I mean, if anybody on the waiver wire, it doesn't, even if he plays 30 games, 40 games, that kind of value is going to be a lot better than anybody else you're going to find on the wire for that time. Now, you might have to eat a few zeros here and there, but I don't think he should be available in any league still. Am I crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I would do it for sure. And even if you're in a head-to-head league where it's more challenging than Roto, because You need consistency from week to week. You're basically playing keep away. You could pick up Kawhi, comes back, has an impressive 1 or 2 week stretch, try to sell him. Then you just use your waiver wire priority on a guy that you could package or sell by himself, and get a player that is more reliable down the road. So I would definitely spend a waiver spot on Kawhi.
Yeah. Just seeing now, Joel Embiid out tonight, confirmed out. Ben Simmons is doubtful, and there is COVID for Robert Covington. So hopefully that sticks with just Robert Covington. That could be kind of a situation if it breaks out there. I don't know. There's nothing that I've seen like anybody else has it, but Clippers, there might be some guys to pick up on the Clippers if a few guys go down into COVID protocols. I thought we were done with COVID protocols, but apparently not. Apparently still going around a little bit here. Let's go to the next question.
Well, can we stay on Embiid then for a second? Because basically his week just became a 2-game week. Because the Sixers had 3 games this week. So if you're in a weekly start sit lineup, it puts you in quite a pickle because 2 games of Embiid is still worth starting and playing. 1 game is not. With them having a day off after today, and if we don't hear of him entering the protocols and it's just an illness, I'd still keep Embiid in my starting lineup. If for some reason before tip-off today we find out that he's in the health and safety protocols, then I would put Embiid on my bench. But I'd still feel confident in playing Embiid today. I have more confidence in playing Tobias Harris with this news, and I would definitely get Melton into my weekly lineups with it.
Yeah, that's fair. To be devil's advocate here, those other 2 games for the 76ers are on Wednesday and Friday. So 11 and 12 games respectively. You're still going to have some options if you didn't want to start Embiid. If you're maybe a little bit too nervous, probably yes. I mean, he's going to be one of the guys that you start. Not probably. He is going to be one of the guys that you start should he go out there. But if you're maybe you want to play it more on the safe side, you're not going to be lacking other players who are playing on those days. Rest of the season, or no, we didn't answer this one. 9 cat roto game cap 11 teams. Do you think for the outlook of Norm Powell? Like we were just saying, I mean, if there's some COVID situation there, that could be something right there. That's an opportunity for Norm Powell. I think that he's probably going to be more of a streamer, but on the nights where Kawhi is out, which might be a hell of a lot of them, he's probably somebody worth starting. I don't think he's must roster, but he could be a high level streamer.
Yeah, I think Powell should be on rosters right now. So I definitely think you should keep him on your roster. I think he's worth playing in most matchups while the Clippers are, without Kawhi. So it's possible what Joe is saying that maybe there will be a time where you can cut him loose to the wire. But right now I like Norman Powell's outlook. When Kawhi returns, that could change.
Yeah. Okay. Next question here, Ben Simmons. Rest of season expectations for Ben Simmons. Will he get it going later on? It's impossible to tell with this guy. I mean, he doesn't want to shoot. You see these clips of him. He shoots sometimes. It looks awful. Last night he actively avoided getting a layup, or maybe it was the night before, but he was just has a clear path to the basket, doesn't take it. There are still some concerning mental parts of his game. He's a counting stats guy. He's a good points league guy. Will he get it going? Will he be a great fantasy asset this season? I don't think he'll be great. I think he'll be all right, given the certain build. What do you think there, Steve?
I'm with you. I'm out on Ben Simmons. I don't have him in any of my leagues, and that was intentional. Even when we were getting to the later rounds, yeah, sure, he could produce, late round value in 12-team category leagues. I just don't want to deal with the headache. He's already, is he ruled out or is he questionable with the left knee soreness tonight or for tomorrow's game? I know he popped up on the injury report with a left knee soreness. So, I mean, it's possible that we see more injuries with him after his back issue last season as well, on top of the basically lack of confidence offensively. So I would rather wait for maybe a couple of good games and sell high or sell at all. That's what I would be thinking and doing with Ben Simmons.
Yeah, completely agree. Next question here. Jamal Murray is on the waiver wire. How much fat? I'm used to hearing it called fab. I'm not sure. Is it T?
I like it fat though. That sounds better.
Free agent acquisition I don't know what the T
Tickets?
would be.
Tokens?
Maybe. When you drop him at 9 cat, 12 team roto, 60 too much. Is it at $100 budget or $1,000 budget? I'm going to assume 100 because 60 seems like kind of
Maybe 200 too. I see a lot of leagues with 200.
maybe 200. Yeah. So maybe specify on how much that is. Although,
Always better to give percentage rather than dollar amount.
yeah, that's fair. But I think if it's, let's say it's 100, you're throwing 60 at him. That's probably about right, I think. I mean, he's a guy who could be a top 50 player. He started off horrendously, but he started to close that buy low window on their last game. So $100, yeah, it's $100 limit. You're throwing 60% of your budget at him. I think that's probably worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Somewhere between 50 and 60%,
Yeah.
where would be where I would go with that. And it always depends on your league mates. So maybe if you've been in this league with people for the past couple of seasons, maybe take a look at transactions from last season and see who were the high price guys and see what they went for, to try and give yourself an idea. Maybe you can save a few dollars with that, or maybe you end up spending a little bit more because you see that $60 is like a normal. I also like to go a little bit off of the zeros and fives. So instead of going 60, I would go 61.
Right.
Just to outdo the person who did 60. That's just a little trick I use. But yeah, 60% is very reasonable.
Yeah, man. I was seeing Brewski was tweeting about some of his fab claims, and these are $1,000 like NFBC National Fantasy Championship stuff, high stakes leagues where it's $1,000 thing, and people are throwing $700 plus at Bull. Just craziness in those kind of leagues. But a lot of fun. It's a good alternative if you guys ever played in a fab league for whatever sport. Good alternative to the waiver wire. It's mixes things up quite a bit. Are we worried about AD's back? Think we try trade him for a top 20 player in a points league. I'm always worried about AD's back a little bit. Am I more worried right now than usual? Not particularly. I don't think that that's a really rosy outlook for anybody there. I mean, they're still gonna have fantasy value. I think the Lakers are just such a dumpster fire that maybe you can. I don't know. I don't think you're gonna get top dollar for him just because of the narrative around Los Angeles in general. I think that'll dampen his market. Maybe I'm crazy to think that, but I think that they're just viewed so poorly in the general landscape of the public that you see Davis or even LeBron maybe right now, people would say, yeah, I just want to stay away from the whole Lakers situation. I don't know if you could sell him for a top 20 player. If you can, I wouldn't be so opposed to it. Somebody with less injury concern.
Yeah, I agree. If you could, I think you could get a top 20 player for Davis. I agree with you on the Lakers being a mess, and I think that that definitely affects all the players not named AD and LeBron. In my opinion, I'm not worried about his back any more than I usually am worried about him when it comes to an injury perspective, because he seems to take a potential season-ending fall every game, and that's never fun to have in fantasy. But yeah, if you would rather get somebody that is a little bit less of an injury risk, I would recommend selling him for a top 20 player. I don't think that's out of the realm of scenarios you should pursue. I'm actually still high on Anthony Davis rest of the season, so I don't even know if I had him. I don't know if I would be trying to trade him because I'm not that worried about his back as it is right now. And I mean, the guy just he falls, and it seems like it's a glass bowl falling from the third shelf, but it's not most of the time. And so I like Anthony Davis rest of the season, especially in a points league. I think that's nice. So yeah, sure, try to trade him if you're nervous about injury concern, which will continue to be a concern rest of the season with a guy like Davis. But I'd feel fine trading him or standing pat.
Yeah, I'm just seeing now. I didn't see this earlier, but he said today that his lower back was killing him during Sunday's game, which is kind of just business as usual for AD. Like we said, the guy falls all over the place. He'll probably go into every game or most games with that game time decision label, which is, I mean, like you're saying, if you want to trade him, if you want to keep him, there is something to be said about that peace of mind of not seeing game time decision every single night on your roster. And I mean, per game right now, he's averaging 24-10 with 2.5 steals and 2 blocks. So that'll offset some of the injury concerns. You probably should be able to get yourself a top 20 player. Like you said, it's about the fantasy player that you are. If you're more risk averse, then trade him. If you're someone who, likes to fly by the seat of your pants a little bit, then hold on and maybe maybe you get lucky with a top 5 season with 65 games, 70 games out of him. It's totally possible.
If the Lakers had better center options, I'd feel
Yeah.
more confident trading Davis.
Yep.
But they have nobody behind him, and he's looked like a beast when he has played. So, but you're right. The game time decision, the questionable, probable tags will. I don't think there will be a game this season that Davis is not on the injury report.
Yeah, you're probably right. And that's why I like playing with IL plus. I don't know how many of your leagues are like that, but when you see somebody IL plus, you can throw a game time decision into that slot and pick up somebody else, because there are going to be a lot of headaches with guys like Anthony Davis this season. So if you want to avoid those, then maybe try and sell now and get out while he's been a per game monster to start the season. Are Bojan and Hayward sell highs, or do they keep up this value and we ride this out? Also, what to do with Tobias Harris and Al Horford? Bojan, for me, is a big sell. Hayward, nothing too crazy there in terms of buying or selling. Let's address that first part first. What are your thoughts on Bogdanovic and Hayward?
Yeah, Bogdanovic is definitely a sell high. I mean, he's not going to be able to produce like we've seen so far this season. Although I'm really happy for him and the Pistons that he's playing this well. I think this could be a career year for him in Detroit. But I still think he's a huge sell high. Hayward, I mean, the bigger concern for me is the injury risk than anything. I don't necessarily think he's a sell high. Don't really think he's much of a buy low. I agree with you. I think he kind of is who he is. In terms of the other two guys that he's mentioning here, sell or hold, Tobias Harris, I would try and sell high. I don't see him producing at this level the whole season. Al Horford, I guess I'd hold him, but I don't know. I don't feel that strongly on Al Horford myself. See him more as a, top 90, top 100 player when the season comes to a close.
Yeah, I've seen some people drop Al Horford, so I would make sure he's not floating around on waiver wires. There is a part of me that worries. Last year was a huge rejuvenation for his fantasy game. Couple of years prior, he wasn't. I forget exactly where he finished, but it wasn't so great like it was last year. Maybe last year was kind of that one last swan song fantasy wise for him, and we're gonna maybe be chasing that a little bit this year. I think there's definitely a possibility, but I still think that he should be on rosters for now. Tobias Harris, he's like a top 30, 35 player so far. Very unlikely that continues. So yeah, if you can get yourself somebody in that same range back again, even top 45 for Tobias Harris, I'd be pretty comfortable doing that. Another 76ers related question. Can Melton make his way into 12-team value with a healthy Embiid? That's tricky for me. I doubt it personally, but we saw it last year, right? Coming off the bench, 21, 22 minutes for Melton. It's just shy of probably being 12-team relevant. Maybe he does get there, but as of now, I'm a little bit skeptical. What about you?
Yeah, it's a tough one. We're talking category leagues here, I'm sure, not points leagues with Melton. And I think it's definitely within the realm of possibility. And it's not just Embiid healthy, it's any of the 5 starters. So if any of the 5 starters go out with an injury, I think Melton is the guy that gets into the starting lineup. So it's really when the Sixers are at full strength and not just Embiid being out that impacts Melton positively. So I think that it's going to be tough sledding for him coming off the bench. I think he'll be more of like a fringe, strong fringe streamer. But we're not talking just Embiid healthy. We're talking any of the 5 starters that will positively impact Melton. So that gives you 5 guys that are going to miss probably somewhere between 5 and 20 games this season. So combine that together and you might be able to put together a fantasy viable season for Melton.
Yeah, there'll be elite streaming times like today. If you're in a daily changes league, you're listening to this right now, you just tuned in, go pick up the Anthony Melton because Embiid is out tonight. He'll start. He'll probably see 30-ish minutes, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but anything over like 24, 25 for him is gravy. So there are certainly going to be times where he has value. I think he's probably in the elite streamer category as of right now. But anybody gets hurt, anybody goes down, he should be the guy who steps up there. Probably be the last question here for you guys. Thank you so much for the interactions. That helps make the show go very smoothly. So I appreciate you guys chiming in here. Unless you guys have anything else, of course, throw it in there. But I think this will probably be our last one. With 2 IL slots available, Schroeder, Fultz, and Cole Anthony are on the waiver wire. Are any worth picking up and stashing? How would you see their respective rest of season outlooks? For me, it's probably the 2 Magic guys. If you're going to be stashing any combination there, there's a chance that Schroeder could have some value as well. But I think I'm a little more confident in Fultz and in Cole Anthony probably. But what about you, Steve? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on the Magic guys. I'm really excited to see Fultz when he comes back. I think he could deliver value on his assists alone. And I would lean Cole Anthony over Schroeder. The only reason why Schroeder is interesting is because the Lakers are a mess. And that's like literally the only thing going in his favor, because I don't think he's that great of a category fantasy player. So I'd go Magic guys as well.
Yep. A couple more questions here. Of course, we say we're going to shut down. You guys getting your last second questions in here, which is great. What's an upside per game line look like for Jalen Williams? 12, 4, and 4 with a steal and a block. I think maybe something like that is like best case kind of scenario. What do you maybe I don't know. It's off the top of my head. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I that sounds like reasonable. I'm always much more nervous with young guys, with rookies, especially rookies that are not big men because of percentages. So I'm a little bit more nervous on Jalen Williams than I think most people. I agree with you though. I think that could be like his line. I could see him providing more value in assists than and points than on the defensive side. But I don't know if he'll get a block a game, maybe a steal a game seems realistic. But I don't. Top 120 seems within the realm of possibility. But again, the Thunder just are a mess of a team for me to forecast for fantasy purposes. So I think I'd stay away and go like if you had the option between Jalen Williams and DeAnthony Melton today, I'd go DeAnthony Melton.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm just looking at kind of what he did in that last game. He's not going to get 4 steals every game, but I think something generally along those lines is probably going to happen. 5 for 8, probably not going to happen every night. He's not going to shoot 62%, but there's a decent amount of upside. You're asking essentially what's the upside here? It's probably a top 100 player. If everything goes right in Oklahoma City there. Nine Cats Roto, Murphy worth holding or a drop when Ingram is back? I don't know. What do you think here, Steve? I think it's probably going to be doubtful, but what do you think?
I mean, is Herb Jones still out? If Herb Jones is still out, I think he's worth holding.
Herb Jones he's still out as of yesterday. I'm not sure when he'll be back, but he's questionable on a day-to-day basis, I think. So any day now, probably within the next week or so is fair to project, I think.
So if Herb Jones is still out, then yeah, he's worth holding. And, honestly, even when Herb Jones is back, I'd still hold him for a game or two just to see the rotation off the bench. If he's the first guy off the bench and he's still seeing minutes in the mid-20s and he's like that 3-point specialist off the bench, even if that's just his role, he could still be a 3-point specialist in standard leagues in that role, even if Herb Jones returns. So I would hold, and perhaps he will be a drop after a few games, but I'd hold.
He's not someone I'd be rushing to drop. We were talking earlier. He's like a top 30, 35 player. He's probably someone I'd be trying to sell, package him up with somebody else maybe if you need to, and try and get somebody who's top 40 or something player if you can, because when everybody's healthy, there's certainly not going to be 37 minutes for him and then the kind of lines we've seen. So definitely not a drop. Definitely not someone you're dropping right now. When Ingram comes back, though, everything gets kind of complicated. So I'd say throw a couple offers out there with Trey Murphy. See what the market looks like in your league. But guys, I think we are going to pretty much wrap it up there, unless we got one more question here. As a trade target in a punt block build, who would you rather target as a trade buy low, Sabonis or PG? Punt blocks, especially. Neither one of them really gives you blocks, but I'm going with PG there. I'm definitely buying PG. The upside is higher. The price is probably a little bit higher right now still, but we've talked a lot about the Clippers today about the uncertainty there. So PG, someone I'm targeting across all formats at the moment.
Yep. I totally lockstep with you. And one last thing on this show, Jonathan Isaac update. He's still out.
Yeah, we have to see. Was he cited anywhere? Is he, were there, pictures taken, paparazzi following him around, or is he kind of off the radar? I was saying the other day too, TJ Warren. I mean, those two guys are like, what the hell? It's 2 years now plus. Oh man. Anyway, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for chiming in. We got a ton of questions today. It was definitely the most interactive show we've had. Really appreciate that. Next week, we will be back behind the wall. So if you have not gotten yourselves a fantasy pass, go check it out at sportsethos.com. You guys can find us over on Twitter. You can see the names on the screen there. Joe Orrico 99, Stephen Vidovich, Stephen with a PH, Vidovich. You can find us over there in the meantime, and also in the Sports Ethos Discord and everywhere else. Any final thoughts here, Steve, before we let you go?
No, just excited for another week of basketball. Hope that we helped you guys win your matchups this week.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And also it should be a lot of fun when we do this next week, because there's a 15-game Monday and a 0-game Tuesday. Make sure you guys check out that show. Until then, take care, everybody. Cheers.